you work in law enforcement. You're the owner of Brad and Bash Firearms Medical and Training, as well as podcast, a really cool show called Tap Rack Bang Show. Yep. Thank you for what you do, man, and thank you for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'm a big fan of your podcast. I've been listening to it for a while. Oh. I think that's what actually triggered me into starting with BJJ. Is just nice. The MMA. I kept seeing you post, and I was like, all right, let's see what I can do now.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I wanted to go back a little bit, though, because after listening to some of your shows, kind of got to know you a little bit more, or at least hear a one-sided story of your story there. But your dad is also in law enforcement. What was it like as a kid having your dad be in law enforcement?
So my dad actually retired in 2001, before September 11th.
Gotcha.
And I was in kindergarten at the time. So luckily, I mean, I didn't have to come home every day to see my dad, in uniform. Yeah. But there was definitely a kind of structured program growing up. There was a certain leniency, I think, because I was raised that way, that there was a lot of trust, and I didn't have to check in every second, or they didn't worry about what I was doing, because it was kind of already established that I wasn't going to veer off the path. So there were pros and cons to growing up with a dad in law enforcement. I'll leave it at that.
For sure, man. And I mean, you didn't like high school, you didn't like college. I'm the same way. How did you end up making your way into law enforcement then, man?
So having a dad who was a cop made me want to go into law enforcement so bad.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then high school is mandatory. High school is just something you got to do for life. If you need a GED, but at least I went to a private school in my area, so it was you breezed on by and you had fun at the same time, so it wasn't too bad. College was where I really didn't want to do it, but my mom said to me, "You got to go to college or you got to move out." So I was like, "All right, I like having a free place to live. I'll go to college," and it worked out. First 2 years of college was actually in school. But during that time, I was able to do an EMT program within the college, and it counted towards credits. So it was fun. And then the next 2 years, I actually did online while I was in paramedic school. So I got 30 credits from paramedic school, 30 credits just doing regular college online, and got out in 3 years and finished up with that. So
right on, man. Right on.
Hated it.
I tried it for a year and failed out of almost every class except for business and speech. Ironically enough, that's kind of what I do now. So, but yeah.
There you go. Helped you find your niche at least.
Totally.
Yeah.
But so you're the owner of Brad and Bash. Tell me about Brad and Bash. How did it get started, man? And what made you decide to start this thing?
Sure. There is, at least in the bigger departments and smaller departments have their flaws. Smaller departments don't have large funding, because some of these departments out in small little towns, they could be anywhere from like 6 to 7 guys, maybe the sheriff and his deputy. That's it. And then coming from where we are in New York, my department's 4,000. NYPD is 40,000. So there's a lot bigger departments and there's a lot more. But both of them struggle in the necessary training. They give you the bare minimum to certify you as an officer and send you out. That's what happens. So academies are different lengths, depending on what type of law enforcement you're going into. And they have to, look at NYPD as an example. And they do a great job at NYPD, but their academy classes are sometimes 1,000. So when you have a structured time to push 1,000 people through an academy, not everybody's going to get that necessary one-on-one time that they need. And every officer in general, after the academy, you qualify 1 to 2 times a year with your firearm. There isn't necessarily a lot of in-service training classes unless you're on a special unit. So for the guys that are out on patrol and most likely to encounter the threats first, how do they necessarily keep their skills up and maintain? So that's where we came into play, starting this company.
Okay. And obviously having this firearms company in New York, which I'm from Idaho, so New York to me doesn't seem like that much of a gun-friendly state.
It is not.
Did you run into any pushbacks when you're trying to get this thing going?
Legally, we didn't, thankfully. As long as we started the company properly, we got an LLC formed. We got proper insurance, and finding insurance that works in New York was difficult on its own because the governor doesn't allow certain insurance companies like the NRA. So we had to find one that would work. So we did everything legally, and then it really came down to making sure our classes fit the criteria for our students as well as the laws for New York. So we actually do, for the most part, unless it's a class that has standard operating procedures that are discussed or other OPSEC material, the classes are open to the public. They're open to anyone who can pass a background check. And we try to make sure that you can come to the class to the best possibility. So if we have some loaner guns that belong to LE that you can use for the class, or 30-round mags that we can lend to you for the class, and then you can still participate fully. So you're not really affected by it.
Okay, right on. Now, you were recently invited to go to a law enforcement roundtable where you guys discussed like suicide amongst law enforcement and red flag laws, mental health, PTSD. How was that roundtable, man, and what were some of the highlights that you got from that?
I would say overall the roundtable was very effective. Luckily, the congresswoman that was there, she arranged this because she's very pro law enforcement. She's pro 2A, especially in New York. It's very rare to come by.
Yeah.
So she was great. I think overall it was really productive, but we did have the media there. So the one thing that kind of does is when you bring all of these head of departments, you have chief of police, you have different sheriffs that are all sitting there, and we're trying to bring up real issues. When you're discussing mental health amongst police and red flag laws, you have the media sitting there who, at least in New York, but it seems like pretty much everywhere right now, the media is constantly attacking police. Before any facts of a case come out, they're already condemning the police for whatever happened. Right. Before anything comes out. So how are you supposed to talk honestly and talk about things that we need as officers when the media is sitting right there waiting to use whatever you say against you and say, oh, there's admitting, right there, a sheriff is admitting that people in his department have mental health problems. We need to pull them off the streets. We need to take their badges away. And that's somebody's family. That's somebody's livelihood. So,
yeah,
it was difficult, but overall it was very productive. And there were a lot of intelligent people there who brought so much information forward.
Good, man, good. Now, one of the cool things about Brown and Bash is you guys give back to a lot of different charities, and I noticed on your website you've got organizations like LEO Weekend and Oath. Why did you guys decide to give to those two organizations?
Those two specifically. So we wanted to help the veteran and the law enforcement communities just because that's where it hits home.
Gotcha.
So much of my family was in the service, and then LEO as well. So we wanted to give back to those two types of charities. How I found those two, I met Oath in San Antonio at, I don't remember which year it was, but I met them at one of the Grunt Fest festivals. The one that, where was it? It was in San Antonio. It was a good time, a couple of years ago.
Right.
And Oath was there. They brought some of their people out, some of the vets who, they only work with disabled American veterans who can no longer do what they love to do because of their disability, so they make it possible for them. So They brought them out from about 6 hours away, somewhere else in Texas. I got to meet them there, and I just fell in love with the organization, fell in love with the people. Those two veterans were awesome. It was a couple. She was a medic, and he was 11 Bravo, and they met in the service, both injured, and now they're married. So they were really cool. And LEO Weekend, we bumped into each other actually on the streets of New York. I was on a patrol, and the other guy who the president of that organization is NYPD, and he was going to testify in a case in court, and we kind of just bumped heads and we started chatting.
Okay. That's awesome, man. Now, I wanted to talk about your podcast, Tap Rack Bang, because it's an awesome show, and you do this show with a co-host, Lindsey Fassler, right? And
correct.
How did you guys meet? How did this idea of this podcast come together, man?
So Lindsey and I met through Instagram.
Okay.
We've actually have yet to meet in person. Complications where her work didn't allow her to come to SHOT Show this year. This was supposed to be the time that we actually meet in person, but we met on Instagram through probably common hashtags as far as firearms training. She's a firearms instructor herself, and I was looking to put on a female-only firearms class here. A lot of the husbands have been, officers are asking for a class for their wives, and they don't feel that they're the appropriate instructor to take on that task. So they wanted to put that on me, and I thought it'd be better to hear from another female. They'll feel more comfortable in that environment. So I was reaching out to different potential instructors, and she was the one I reached out to. Okay. And then after following her for a while, and she started her own podcast just talking about self-development and things that she's done in her own life. And I figured if she has the personality, she has the background, she's comfortable in the podcast environment, she'd be the perfect person. So I reached out to her, and we just kind of came up with the idea, came up with the name, came up with the logo, and we went from there.
That's awesome. It's a great show. I love the logo too, man. The cartoons of you guys are great, man.
Yeah, I think they came out pretty good. I was happy with them.
That's awesome, man. Now, I have to say, I don't watch the news at all. I kind of turned that off several months ago, but there's this big thing that's going on in the state of Virginia right now. Would love to get your opinion on this. Like, it seems like they're obviously trying to attack the Second Amendment. Do you think that other states are going to follow them based off of what they're doing today?
So it's interesting that you say that, because at SHOT Show, everyone's talking about the states that they come from. And I'm hearing of a lot of different states, like gun-friendly states. Georgia, for example. And I thought Virginia that's the headquarters of the NRA. And it seems like all of a sudden, once the new elected officials took office, they kind of started tearing away at it. So a lot of these different states are having the same bills pushed, but the citizens of those states aren't as worried because they know of who is in charge, and they're positive it won't make it past the governor to sign it into office. So they're not worried. As far as Virginia, when you have the head of that state who is for that gun control, it is a big problem. And I definitely support the fact that everyone was out there, marching out there and fighting for our rights. You look at law enforcement and military take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, but it's very difficult when you wear that uniform to be able to express how you truly feel in that uniform. Because when you put on that uniform, you're not yourself, you're representing a bigger agency. So it really does come down to the people are the ones that have to get out there and fight for what they believe in. And the fact that they could do so peacefully without, you look at some of these other protests that go on around this country and they turn violent, things are on fire, people are hurt. And this went no problem. Everybody was out there peacefully marching. So they wanted to put on some tactical gear and walk around with guns. There wasn't a single issue, not a single shot fired. So I think it went as best as it possibly could have gone. And I just hope that the elected officials that we put in office get the message and listen to the people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I wanted to transition to some fun questions here real quick. And I've got these cool things called pod decks. You might have seen me pull these out before, but essentially they are 50 interview type questions at random. And I'll pull one of these out. Maybe it'll flop. Maybe it'll be a good one. I don't know, man. We'll see.
We'll find out.
Let's see what this one says. All right. It says, if you were stranded on a desert island and you could choose one person to keep you company, who would it be? And what about one animal?
One person and one animal? Or?
One person and then one animal. What type of animal?
All right. Ooh, that's tough. If it's going to come down to an animal, it's going to have to be a dog. They're just the most friendly. They can't get angry at you. That's the thing they say. If you locked up your girlfriend and your dog in the trunk of a car and after an hour opened it up, one will be happy to see you, one will be pissed. So I think a dog is going to be the answer to that.
Awesome.
As far as a person specifically, oh man, I'm going to probably go with Bash. Bash and I, his real name is David Basher. Bash is it was catchier, and that was his nickname in high school. We go back to high school. We've been best friends since high school. And through our venture off into different, areas of work, we've just still maintained best friends. We go on vacation together all the time. We do everything. So it'd probably be him because we would probably just laugh about it. That's it. Just make it work.
That's awesome, man. I'm a music guy, so I always love to ask this question, but what's your favorite type of music, or do you have a favorite band that you like to listen to?
Yeah, favorite band is actually Queen.
Okay, nice.
I love Queen, yeah. Especially once that movie came out, and then they got all the popularity. Now people were like, oh, Queen's pretty cool. And I'm like, yeah, you should have been listening to it from before.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and it'd probably be, favorite type of music. It'd probably be rock.
Yeah, nice. Oh, this is going to be the toughest question for you. The whole interview, what's your favorite type of gun to shoot?
That is a tough question. Wow. I'd probably say my Mark 18 is my favorite gun to shoot because every other gun that I have, it all serves like a specific purpose, and so does the Mark 18, I guess, but at the same time, like I would use it for just about anything. I would take it on a hunting trip. I'd use it in a defensive scenario. I'd use it in combat, just anywhere. That'd probably be my go-to. So that's awesome. A tough one, but yeah, I'd probably be my answer.
Cool, man. Brad, I wanted to also give you an opportunity to just give a shout out to your co-host, your business partners, whoever, family. The camera's all yours, man.
Oh, I appreciate that. Wow. I have to start with family because if they hear this podcast and they don't hear me say anything about them, I'll probably get in trouble for that. So I'm just going to say family and get out of the way. I got a big family. It's easier to do that. Yeah, I'll just run down really quick. If you guys, want to go follow some awesome pages, if you're looking for training, Brad and Bash It's at Brad and Bash for Instagram and Facebook. That's where you can find us. Our website is bradandbash.com. Has a list of all of our upcoming classes, as well as a section that you can fill out if you want us to come to you. So we got offers from Florida recently, different ranges that they want to have us come out as guest instructors out there and bring what we do from New York out there. So check that out. Tap Rack Bang Podcast. We're still new, still working hard. We're trying to record episodes to get them out. So at Tap Rack Bang Podcast, and we have a website up. Still working on the website though. It's a project that's ongoing, but go check that out. And follow Lindsey. You can find her on Instagram at Baby Fassler. You can see everything she's up to. She's always doing gun stuff, always doing stuff with LEOs. So that's really cool. Go check her out. And other than that, that's all the things that I'm up to, and that's really it.
Come on, man. Dude, it's been an honor to talk to you. This is such a great conversation. You and I, we kind of met through Alpha Outpost and Grunt Style over the last couple of years, man. Yep. And it's cool to finally talk to you in person and get that going, man. So thank you for your time, man. It's been an honor, dude.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thank you so much for hanging around. Really appreciate it. If you'd like to see more videos from Top Rated MMA and the Bearded Biz Show, please click the playlist and also hit subscribe to our channel. Become part of the Top Rated MMA and Bearded Biz community. We would really appreciate your support. Also, please leave a comment below. I will read and respond to all of them. Thank you so much. Have an awesome day.